All right, let's talk about one of the most infamous film series ever made. We're going to dive into a trilogy that started as this stomach-churning dare for audiences and somehow morphed into something, well, something bizarre and surprisingly complex. Let's peel back the layers on the Human Centipede.
You're not going to believe this, but the whole idea, it all started with a joke. The director, Tom Six, said he was kidding around with friends about how to punish a child molester, and he made what he himself called a sick joke. But the idea was so horrible, so memorable, he thought, hey, that might actually make a great horror film.
So how in the world does that one-liner become 3 feature films that push the limits of censors and audiences all over the globe? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack here. From the cold, almost clean horror of the first movie to the absolutely bonkers social commentary of the last one. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, with the film that introduced this unforgettable concept to the world, the Human Centipede first sequence.
The premise is, well, it's pretty simple, but it is absolutely horrifying. You have this renowned German surgeon, Dr. Heider, who used to specialize in separating conjoined twins. Now, in his retirement, he decides to do the exact opposite. He kidnaps 3 tourists to surgically join together, creating one single shared digestive tract.
Get this, the film actually marketed itself as being 100% medically accurate. But yeah, some actual physicians on the Bad Medicine podcast they had some thoughts. They pointed out some pretty major flaws, like the fact that there was 0 ventilation or monitoring equipment for the victims. Kind of crucial details for a medical procedure.
So the first movie, right, it sets up this very specific, almost clinical kind of horror. But for the sequel, oh man, the director went in a totally different direction. Like way, way more graphic.
See, the thing that makes the first film so effective is what it doesn't show you. Director Tom Six did that on purpose. He kept most of the really graphic stuff off screen. He said it forces the audience to imagine the horror, which makes the whole idea way stronger. It's all about what's happening inside your own head.
And this right here, this side-by-side just says it all. On the left, you've got Dr. Heider from the first movie, a world-class surgeon all about surgical precision and quiet menace. And on the right, that's Martin from the sequel. He's just an obsessed fan with no medical training who tries to recreate the whole thing with like a crowbar and a staple gun.
So this wasn't just about swapping out the bad guy. No, this was a complete shift in philosophy. The series veered away from that psychological suspense and went straight into what critics called unflinching and graphic torture porn. It's filmed in this gritty black and white, and the whole point was to make you feel dirty and grossed out.
So, yeah, as you can probably guess, this huge jump in brutality, it caused a massive uproar. And that led to some serious showdowns with film censors around the world.
Over in the UK, things got really serious. They straight up refused to give the film a certificate at first. The board basically said it posed a real, as opposed to a fanciful, risk to people because the entire film is about the villain getting off on torturing and degrading his victims.
So how many cuts did it take to finally get that 18 certificate in the UK? 32. A whopping 32 cuts. The British Board of Film Classification made them slice out 2.5 full minutes of footage before they'd even consider releasing it.
And the director, Tom Six, he was not happy about this. Not at all. His really angry response just added fuel to this huge debate about art versus censorship. But honestly, all the controversy probably just helped cement the trilogy's notorious reputation.
Okay, so that brings us to the third movie. And instead of trying to top the second film's gore, the series just does a complete 180 and goes full-on self-aware parody.
Yeah, the final film it's completely meta. So get this, it's set in a failing American prison. The warden has all these problems with riots and budget cuts, and he gets this brilliant idea to solve everything. Create a 500-person centipede out of all the inmates. And where does he get this idea? By watching the first 2 Human Centipede movies on DVD with his accountant.
This wild shift in tone is where fans came up with this pretty clever meal analogy. The first film is the appetizer. It introduces the shocking concept. The second is the horrific, hard-to-stomach main course. And the third, that's the dessert, a silly, schlocky send-up that basically makes fun of the whole thing. But what if there was something else going on there?
And this is where things get really, really interesting. Some critics have argued that if you look past all the filth and the gore, there's actually a pretty sharp social critique buried in there.
So some critics, like the folks over at Slash Film, they argue you can kind of peel this trilogy back like an onion. Layer 1, the first film, is just a geek show. It's an endurance test to see if you can watch it. But Layer 2, the second film, becomes this meta-commentary on media, right? It's about a character whose horrible actions are directly inspired by watching the first movie.
And then you get to that third layer, and suddenly, it's a political statement. The Centipede isn't just a gross-out body horror concept anymore. It's a metaphor for the American prison system. This idea of inmates being dehumanized and force-fed a broken system's ideals, all under the guise of rehabilitation.
So that's the big twist, right? The series basically weaponizes its own disgusting reputation. It uses that shock value to make a much bigger, and maybe even more disturbing, point about all the things we're forced to consume, whether it's just endlessly recycled media or completely broken political systems.
And all of this leaves us with one big, kind of uncomfortable question. Where's the line between just repulsive entertainment and a valid critique? Is there really a deeper meaning here, or are we all just making excuses for shock value? And that question is exactly what makes this bizarre, disgusting trilogy a cultural phenomenon that's actually worth understanding.